In the winter of 1889, the people of Frost Hollow believed Sabine Orrell was too heavy to climb a mountain, too poor to keep her land, and too broken-hearted to defend herself. They laughed when she reinforced the seams of their coats, complained that her prices were too high, and whispered that a widow with her broad figure had no right to expect kindness from anyone. By the time the deepest snow covered the pass, those same people would be standing inside the meeting hall, silent with shame, while Sabine revealed the secret their most powerful men had buried beneath forged papers, stolen water, and years of lies. But before that day came, she would cry alone beside a frozen road, accept work from a man the town feared, and learn that being treated cruelly had never made her weak. It had only made her forget how much strength she still carried. Cold had settled over Frost Hollow before November was halfway gone. It rolled down from the white peaks at sunset and stayed trapped between the mountains until morning. Smoke hung above the chimneys in thin gray lines. Wagon wheels groaned over frozen ruts, and every porch carried a stack of chopped wood because no one trusted the weather to remain mild for long. Sabine Orrell sat near the iron stove in her small workroom, guiding a needle through 3 layers of dark wool. Her fingers were red from the cold, though the stove was burning. She had learned to use very little wood during the day. A full fire made the room comfortable, but comfort cost money, and money had become harder to find with every passing week. Sabine was a large woman with a broad figure, a round face, and thick dark hair marked by silver near her temples. She wore it twisted into a plain knot that often loosened while she worked. Her brown eyes had once been warm and lively, according to those who remembered her before her husband died. Now sorrow seemed to rest inside them, even when she smiled. She had been a widow for almost 2 years, but there were mornings when she still turned toward the empty side of the bed, expecting Elias to be there. She would remember the sound of his breathing, the roughness of his hands, and the gentle way he had always said her name. Then the truth would return, and she would rise before sunrise to face another day without him. Elias Orrell had died after a winter accident on the northern ridge. He had been helping clear snow from the settlement's upper water channel when a wall of ice broke loose above him. 2 men carried him home on a wooden door. His injuries were not bloody or terrible to look at, but something inside his chest had been damaged beyond repair. He lived for 3 days. During those final hours, he spoke often about their land. He told Sabine that every receipt, agreement, and survey record was safe. He told her never to surrender the house, simply because another person claimed to understand papers better than she did. At the time, she thought he was worrying because fever had confused him. She promised whatever he asked, held his hand, and tried not to let him see her fear. After his death, the house became painfully quiet. Sabine survived by sewing winter clothing. She made lined coats for miners, wool shirts for shepherds, heavy skirts for women, and mittens strong enough to hold an axe handle without tearing. Her work had always been good. Even the people who mocked her size admitted that her seams lasted longer than anything shipped over the pass. For a while, the orders kept coming. Then the banker's wife began telling people that Sabine's shop was failing. Councilman Bram Vale mentioned that buying from a widow who might lose her property was risky. Other women repeated that Sabine could no longer keep up with the work because her body made her slow. None of them came to her directly. They simply stopped knocking on her door. That morning, Sabine was finishing a coat ordered by Laurel Pritch, whose husband owned the largest supply store in Frost Hollow. The coat was made of blue wool and lined with soft rabbit fur. Sabine had spent 4 nights stitching small silver leaves around the collar because Laurel had asked for something elegant enough to wear at the Christmas gathering. When Sabine completed the final seam, she folded the coat carefully, wrapped it in clean cloth, and walked into town. The road was steep, and the cold air tightened her lungs. Sabine moved slowly, placing each boot with care. She knew people watched her when she climbed. She could almost hear their private judgments before anyone spoke. Her body had always drawn attention. As a girl, she had learned to enter rooms quietly, and avoid chairs that looked delicate. As a married woman, she had endured questions about why she had never given Elias a child. Widowhood made the cruelty worse. Without a husband beside her, some people seemed to believe they had permission to say whatever entered their minds. Laurel Pritch was standing inside the supply store when Sabine arrived. Several other women had gathered near the counter, warming their hands beside a small brass heater. Conversation slowed as Sabine stepped through the doorway. Melting snow darkened the shoulders of her old brown cloak. "I brought your coat," Sabine said. Laurel looked at the wrapped bundle but did not reach for it. "I'm afraid I won't be needing it." Sabine thought she had misunderstood. "You ordered it 6 weeks ago. I changed my mind. The cloth was purchased for you. The collar was cut to the measurement you gave me." Laurel glanced at the other women. A faint smile moved across her mouth. "My husband says we should be careful about spending. Besides, I heard your hands have grown unsteady. I would rather not pay for work that might come apart." Sabine slowly unwrapped the coat. "You may inspect every seam. There is no need." A woman named Nella Crow leaned closer to Laurel and whispered loudly enough for the room to hear. "It is a lovely coat, though perhaps Sabine ought to keep it. She could add another panel and wear it herself." The women laughed. One covered her mouth, but her eyes shone with amusement. Sabine held the coat against her chest. "The price is $12. You agreed to it." Laurel's face hardened. "Do not make a scene. Everyone knows you are desperate, but that does not mean you can force decent people to support you. I am asking to be paid for work you ordered, and I am telling you no." Bram Vale entered from the back room. He was a tall man with narrow shoulders and a neatly trimmed red beard. As head of the town council, he had a way of speaking slowly, as if every sentence carried the force of law. "What is happening here?" he asked. Laurel sighed. "Sabine refuses to leave." Bram looked at Sabine, and then at the coat. "Mrs. Orrell, this is a place of business. People are free to decide what they wish to buy. She ordered it. Without a signed contract, it is her word against yours." Sabine felt heat rise into her face. "You know I have never required written contracts from people in this town. That may have been unwise." Nella Crow gave another soft laugh. "Everything about her seems larger than it ought to be, except her judgment." This time no one tried to hide their amusement. Sabine looked from face to face, hoping to find one person willing to object. Old Mr. Pritch kept his eyes on the account book. A young clerk pretended to arrange jars. Even Laurel seemed surprised by the harshness of the remark, but she said nothing. Sabine wrapped the coat again. Her fingers trembled, though the stitching inside it was perfectly straight. "Good afternoon," she whispered. The laughter followed her outside. Snow had begun to fall. It was fine and dry, drifting across the road like pale dust. Sabine walked past the bakery, the livery, and the bank without raising her head. She heard 2 boys whisper her name and then snicker. Near the edge of town, her boot slipped in a frozen wagon track. She caught herself against a fence post, breathing hard. The bundle nearly fell from her arms. She kept walking until the buildings disappeared behind the trees. Then she left the road and moved behind a group of firs where passing travelers could not see her. There, beside a frozen ditch, Sabine sank onto a fallen log. The wood groaned beneath her weight, and that small sound was enough to break what remained of her control. She pressed the unfinished payment notice from the bank against her mouth and cried. She cried for the weeks spent making a coat no one would buy. She cried for the empty side of her bed and the cold rooms waiting at home. She cried because Elias had promised the settlement would look after her, and because she had once believed him. Her tears cooled on her cheeks almost as soon as they fell. "I am trying," she whispered into her gloved hands. "Elias, I am trying so hard." A few yards away, hidden by the trees, Ivo Venn stood beside a grey packhorse. He had been traveling down from his mountain camp when he heard voices at the edge of town. He had seen Sabine leave the store. He had also heard the women laughing. Ivo was known in Frost Hollow, though few people knew him well. He lived beyond the eastern ridge and managed a small crew of men who cut timber, repaired trails, and guided supply wagons through the mountain passes. He was tall and strong, but age and weather had left deep lines around his eyes. A pale scar crossed his left eyebrow. He rarely attended gatherings and never remained in town longer than necessary. Children told stories about him sleeping in caves or speaking to wolves. Most of those stories were foolish, but Ivo never bothered to correct them. He could have approached Sabine. Instead, he stood quietly with one hand on his horse's bridle. Grief deserved privacy when it could be given. He understood the humiliation of being watched while pain took control of the body. Years earlier, he had returned from a distant mining camp after losing his younger brother in a collapse. People had offered him advice, prayers, and unwanted questions. None of them had offered silence. When Sabine finally stood, Ivo stepped farther behind the trees. She wiped her face, tightened her cloak, and continued toward home. He watched until she disappeared around a bend in the road. Then he looked back toward Frost Hollow. The following morning, Sabine heard a knock while she was trying to remove the silver embroidery from Laurel's coat. She hoped to reuse the cloth, though each cut of her scissors felt like another small defeat. When she opened the door, Ivo stood on the porch with snow on his shoulders. "Mrs. Orrell," he said. Sabine tightened her shawl. "Mr. Venn, I need clothing made." She waited, expecting him to explain that the request was an act of kindness. If he mentioned charity, she intended to close the door. Ivo removed a folded paper from his coat. 16 wool shirts, 12 lined coats, 30 pairs of mittens, and 8 canvas overcoats treated with wax. "My men are repairing the East Pass. What we have will not last the winter." Sabine stared at the list. It was more work than she had received in 2 months. "That would take time. I expect good work to take time. The cloth alone would cost nearly $40. He handed her a small leather pouch. "There are 50 in that. Materials and the first part of your labor." Sabine did not take it. "Why me?" "Because 3 years ago I bought a coat you made for Nathan Cobb. He lost it to me in a card game. I have worn it through 2 winters. The lining is thin now, but the seams have not moved." "You came all this way because of a coat won in a card game?" "I came because my men need clothing that does not fall apart." There was no pity in his voice. He did not soften his eyes or pretend the money meant nothing. He stood before her, as one worker speaking to another. Sabine accepted the pouch. Its weight startled her. "I will need measurements." "I brought them. And if the measurements are wrong, that will not be my fault." "They are not wrong. The canvas overcoats will cost more if you want beeswax instead of pine wax. Use whatever keeps out the snow." She looked at him more carefully. "When do you need the first order?" 10 days. That is not enough time for all of it. For 4 shirts, 4 coats, and 10 pairs of mittens. That I can do." Ivo nodded. "Then we have an agreement." He turned toward the steps. "Mr. Venn," Sabine said. He looked back. "Thank you. You have not done the work yet." "No, I suppose I have not. When you have, I will thank you." After he left, Sabine stood in the doorway until the cold pushed her inside. She set the leather pouch on her work table and counted the money twice. Then she touched the blue wool coat lying beneath her scissors. For the first time in many weeks, she did not see useless cloth. She saw lining for 6 sturdy vests. Work filled the house again. Sabine bought wool from a shepherd south of town, canvas from a wagon merchant, and thread from a traveling peddler who was pleased to receive cash. She cut patterns across her dining table and sewed long after dark. The sound of her needle moving through cloth brought life back into the rooms. She slept little, but the exhaustion felt different now. It came with purpose. Ivo returned on the 10th day with a sled. Sabine had completed everything promised. She placed each item in front of him and explained how she had reinforced the shoulders, widened the underarms, and added strips of soft cloth inside the collars. "Men working with axes need room here," she said, lifting one sleeve. "If the coat pulls when they raise their arms, they will leave it open. Then the lining is useless." Ivo examined the stitching. "You thought of that from measurements." "I thought of it from watching Elias work." He glanced at her, but he did not offer sympathy. "You improved the cuffs. The old ones caught snow." He counted out the remaining payment. My men will need more. That was already a large order. There are families at the camp. 2 women cook for us. 1 has 3 children. They need clothing too. Sabine hesitated. Bring me their measurements. By early December, Ivo visited twice each week. Sometimes he brought an order. Sometimes he delivered wool or returned with a coat that needed a small adjustment. He never entered without being invited, and he never stayed longer than business required. Yet his quiet presence began to feel familiar. Sabine noticed that he wiped his boots carefully before crossing her floor. Ivo noticed that she always placed an extra piece of wood in the stove when he arrived, though she used very little when alone. One evening, he brought her a small iron lamp with a polished reflector behind the flame. You are working after dark, he said. This makes the light stronger. How do you know I am working after dark? I can see your window from the upper road. Sabine smiled despite herself. Do you watch every light in the valley? Only the ones producing my coats. He said it with such seriousness that she laughed. The sound surprised them both. Sabine's laugh had been buried for so long that it felt almost unfamiliar in her chest. The moment passed softly. Ivo looked toward a framed sketch of Elias on the mantel. Sabine followed his gaze. He drew that himself, she said. He could never make the nose look right. Perhaps your nose was difficult to draw. He said it was too gentle for charcoal. Ivo nodded, as if Elias's answer deserved respect. He sounds like he noticed things. He did. Sabine waited for the familiar pain, but the memory did not cut as deeply as usual. It warmed her before it hurt. 3 days later, a letter arrived from Frost Hollow Bank. Sabine opened it beside the stove. The message was brief. According to the bank's records, Elias had borrowed $270 using the Orrell property as security. Interest and late charges had increased the debt to $412. Payment was due by the first day of February. If the amount remained unpaid, the bank would claim the house, workshop, and 14 acres surrounding them. Sabine read the letter until the words blurred. She knew Elias had borrowed money after repairing the roof, but he had told her the loan was nearly paid. She had taken small payments to the bank herself. Banker Oren Creel had accepted them without complaint. After Elias died, Creel said the remaining balance was too complicated to calculate and advised her to make regular deposits. She had done so whenever she could. Sabine took the letter to town the next morning. Oren Creel received her inside his private office. He was a round, clean-shaven man with pale hands and a habit of touching his gold watch chain while he spoke. Bram Vale sat in a chair near the window. His presence made Sabine stop at the door. I did not know this was a council matter, she said. Bram happened to be here, Oren replied. Please sit. Sabine remained standing. Your letter says I owe more than Elias originally borrowed. Interest gathers quickly. I made payments, small payments, $30 in the first year, $46 in the second. Elias paid before he died as well. Oren opened a ledger. Our records show only $18 received after his death. That is false. His expression changed just enough for her to see annoyance beneath his practiced patience. Are you accusing the bank of theft? I am asking where my money went. Bram crossed one leg over the other. You should be careful, Sabine. Grief can make people confused about numbers. I am not confused. Of course not, he said gently, which somehow felt more insulting than if he had laughed. But financial matters are difficult. Elias handled them for a reason. Sabine placed both hands on Oren's desk. Show me the original loan paper. The banker paused. It is in storage. I will wait. The storage room is not organized. I have all morning. Oren closed the ledger. The bank is not required to satisfy every anxious demand. You received a lawful notice. If you cannot pay, Bram has offered a generous solution. Bram leaned forward. The council needs land for a new public road. Your property would allow safer access to the eastern ridge. I can arrange for the town to assume the debt. You would be permitted to remain in the house through spring. And after spring? We would find you a room. A room where? There are possibilities. Sabine felt suddenly cold. My land is not for sale. Oren touched his watch chain. Then I suggest you pay what you owe. When Sabine returned home, she found the water barrel beside her kitchen nearly empty. That was strange. Snowmelt from the upper channel should have kept it full. She followed the narrow wooden channel behind the house, climbing through knee-deep snow until she reached the tree line. 50 yards above her property, the flow stopped. Someone had broken the channel wall and packed the opening with frozen dirt. Water spilled down the far side of the hill, where it vanished beneath the snow. Sabine knelt beside the damage. The boards had not cracked from ice. They carried fresh tool marks. Someone had struck them again and again with the edge of an axe. She heard a branch snap behind her. Sabine turned so quickly that she lost her balance and sat hard in the snow. The trees stood dark and close together. Nothing moved between them. "Who is there?" Only the wind answered. She struggled to her feet and returned to the house, looking over her shoulder every few steps. That night, she pushed the kitchen table against the door and kept Elias's old hunting knife beside her bed. Every creak sounded like a boot on the porch. Ivo arrived the next afternoon. One look at Sabine's face made him set down the bundle he was carrying. "What happened?" "My water channel broke." "Broke?" She led him uphill. Ivo examined the damaged boards, the packed dirt, and the snow beneath the surrounding trees. He walked in a wide circle without speaking. "These marks came from a narrow-bladed axe," he said. "The cuts were made from above. Whoever did it knew which side would send the water away from your house." "Could an animal have loosened it first?" "No." Sabine wrapped her arms around herself. "I thought I heard someone in the trees." Ivo looked toward the ridge. There were tracks, but snow has covered most of them. She waited for him to say she should leave. Instead, he removed his coat and hung it over a branch. "What are you doing?" "Repairing the channel. You will freeze. I have another coat on the sled. Someone in Frost Hollow makes them well." Sabine almost smiled, but fear held the expression back. "Ivo, I cannot pay you. I did not ask. I do not want charity. Then give me coffee when I finish." He worked until the light faded. Sabine carried boards, held nails, and cleared snow with a shovel. She was not able to move quickly on the steep ground, but Ivo never told her to rest. When she needed to catch her breath, he continued working. When she returned, he gave her the next task. By nightfall, water flowed toward the house again. Inside, Sabine poured coffee, while Ivo warmed his hands near the stove. "The bank says Elias owed more than $400, she said. "Did he?" "I do not think so. Thinking will not stop them." The words stung. "I know that." Ivo accepted the cup. "What records do you have?" "Some receipts, maybe not all." "Find them. You believe someone destroyed my water channel because of a bank loan. I believe someone damaged it because they wanted you frightened. Bram Vale wants my property for a road." Ivo's face remained still. "There is no reason to build a public road across your land. He says it will lead to the Eastern Ridge. The Eastern Ridge Road begins 2 miles north." Sabine looked toward the dark window. Then why would he want it? "I do not know." The mystery settled between them, quiet and cold. Over the next week, Sabine searched the house. Elias had kept papers in a locked box beneath the bed. Inside she found tax receipts, letters from suppliers, and records of their yearly wool sales. There were also 6 payment receipts from Frost Hollow Bank, each signed by Orrin Creel. Together, they proved Sabine had paid more than the bank admitted, but they did not show the original amount of the loan. At the bottom of the box lay an envelope with her name written across it. She opened it with shaking hands. "Sabine, if you ever need to defend the land, begin with the Blue Book. Do not trust a copy that lacks the county seal. Water gives this property its value. Remember that, even if others pretend otherwise." The message was signed by Elias and dated 5 days before his accident. Sabine read it twice. There was no Blue Book in the box. She searched shelves, drawers, cupboards, and trunks. She opened every book in the house, thinking Elias might have hidden a smaller record inside a larger cover. She found nothing. Ivo returned near sunset. Sabine showed him the note. He knew something was wrong, she said. Perhaps. Why did he not tell me? He may have been waiting until he understood it. Or he thought I would be frightened. Were you easily frightened when he was alive? Sabine considered the question. No. Then he probably had another reason. They searched together. Ivo checked beneath loose floorboards while Sabine examined Elias's workbench. Behind a drawer, she found a folded map of the settlement's water channels. A blue line ran from a natural spring above the Orrell property to the house, then continued toward an unused stretch of hillside beyond it. Ivo held the map near the lamp. This is not only a household channel. What do you mean? This line marks a year-round spring. Most channels in Frost Hollow freeze by January. Yours does not, because the water comes from deep inside the mountain. Elias always said the spring was reliable. It is more than reliable. It could supply a logging camp, a mill, or a row of new houses. Sabine looked at the letter from the bank. They do not want my home. No, Ivo said. They want your water. The next morning, a new rumor reached Sabine before breakfast. Nella Crow arrived with a torn skirt and a face arranged into false concern. People are talking, she said, as Sabine inspected the damaged hem. People are always talking. They say Ivo Venn has been staying here at night. He has not. I did not believe them. Of course, a man like him might be lonely, and you are lonely too. But respectable people can be unkind about such arrangements. There is no arrangement. Nella lowered her voice. Some say he paid for your company by pretending to order clothing. Sabine set the skirt down. Take this somewhere else. Nella blinked. I came to offer work. You came to carry a rumor into my house, and watch it wound me. I was trying to warn you. Then you have warned me. Leave. Nella snatched up the skirt. Pride is an ugly thing on a woman already burdened with so much. Sabine opened the door. Leave. By afternoon, 2 families cancelled their orders. A stone struck the workshop wall after dark. When Sabine opened the door, she found a scrap of paper lying in the snow. A crude drawing showed a huge woman chasing a frightened man. Beneath it, someone had written, "Even a mountain beast wants a husband." Sabine carried the paper to the stove. She stood there for a long time before placing it in the flame. Ivo arrived the next day and found her working in silence. I heard the rumor, he said. Sabine did not look up. Then you should consider taking your business elsewhere. Why? People will say worse things. They already say I sleep in caves. That does not hurt you. How do you know? Her needle stopped. Ivo removed his gloves. You are not the only person this town has made into a story. Sabine looked at him. What do they say about you? That I killed a man at a mining camp. That my wife left because I frightened her. That I live alone because no decent person can tolerate me. Were you married? No. Did you kill a man? No. Do you live in a cave? Only when the weather is terrible. A surprised laugh escaped her. Ivo's mouth lifted at one corner. People use stories to explain anyone they do not understand, he said. The stories are rarely kind. This is different. Yes, it is crueler to women. His simple honesty loosened something in her chest. I do not want to make your life more difficult, he continued. If you want me to stay away, say so. I will send another man for the orders. Sabine looked down at the strong hands resting on her table. Ivo had never touched her without reason. He had never stared at her body or looked away too quickly. He made no show of being gentle with her. He simply treated her as if her thoughts and choices were real. I do not want you to stay away, she said. Then I will not. They returned to the mystery of the blue book. Sabine remembered that Elias often carried a small account ledger in the inside pocket of his work coat. The coat had been badly torn during the accident. She had cleaned it, folded it, and placed it inside a cedar chest in the attic because she could not bear to throw it away. Ivo brought down the chest. Sabine lifted the coat with both hands. The smell of cedar had replaced most of Elias's scent, but touching the worn sleeve still made her throat tighten. She searched every pocket. All were empty. This lining is newer than the rest, Ivo said. Sabine examined an uneven row of stitches beneath the left arm. They were not hers. Elias had sewn them himself. with thick black thread. She cut the stitches carefully and reached into the lining. Her fingers closed around a small book covered in faded blue cloth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Inside the book, Elias had recorded every payment made to Orrin Creel, including dates and the names of witnesses. He had copied part of the original loan agreement. The amount borrowed was $270, but Elias's records showed that only $62 remained at the time of his death. The final pages concerned the water channel. Elias had discovered that Bram Vale planned to establish a private timber mill on the eastern ridge. The mill needed steady water. Bram had offered to buy the Orrell land, but Elias refused. Soon afterward, a deed appeared in the council records claiming that Elias had agreed to transfer the spring and 7 acres to a company controlled by Bram. Elias believed the deed was forged. "He wrote that the signature does not match," Sabine said. Ivo read the next line. "He also says the document lacks the raised county seal." Sabine remembered Elias's note. "Do not trust a copy that lacks the county seal. The original deed should be at the county office. The county office is 2 days away." "Not in winter. The western pass is closed." "Then we cannot prove it." Ivo turned another page. Elias wrote that he sent a letter to County Clerk Hollis 6 days before the accident. He asked for a certified copy of the true property deed. Did the answer come? Sabine searched the chest again. There was no letter. For the first time, Ivo looked openly troubled. Who handled the mail? Letters came through Pritch's store. Bram often sorted official deliveries. The room seemed to grow colder. Someone knocked at the door. Ivo moved between Sabine and the entrance, but she shook her head. "This is my house." She opened the door herself. Her nearest neighbor, Marta Pell, stood outside. Marta was a narrow woman with tired eyes and a faded green scarf. For years, she had borrowed Sabine's baking pan and shared vegetables from her garden. Since Elias's death, she had become distant. "I need to speak with you," Marta said. Sabine let her inside. Marta saw Ivo and nearly turned around. "I thought you would be alone. Anything you say to me can be said in front of him." Marta twisted the end of her scarf. "Bram Vale came to my house. He asked what you kept in your attic." Sabine went still. "Why would he ask you?" "He knows I have been inside your home. He said you are hiding papers that belong to the council." "What did you tell him?" Marta's eyes filled with tears. "I told him about Elias's cedar chest." Sabine felt as though the floor had shifted beneath her. "You knew that chest was private." "My husband owes the bank. Orrin said he would take our goats if I did not help. The goats are all we have. So you sold my trust to save them. I was afraid. I am afraid too." Marta began to cry. "I am sorry." Sabine wanted to shout. She wanted to tell Marta that apologies did not repair betrayal. Instead, she looked at the woman's thin coat and worn boots. Fear had made Marta cruel, but the fear itself was real. "When did you tell him?" Sabine asked. "Yesterday." Ivo moved toward the window. "Then they may come tonight." Sabine closed the blue book. "Let them." Ivo looked at her. "They may not come to talk. I will not run from my own house." "No one asked you to run. You were about to." "I was about to suggest we move the papers." The difference mattered. Sabine took a slow breath. Marta wiped her eyes. "There is something else. Bram met Orrin behind the stable last week. I heard Orrin say the channel must fail before the February notice. Bram said if you lost water, no one would question the low price of the land." "Would you repeat that before the council?" Sabine asked. Marta's fear returned. "Bram is the council. Not all of it. He could ruin us. He is already ruining us." Marta looked at the floor. Sabine did not pressure her. "Go home. Keep your goats inside tonight." After Marta left, Ivo wrapped the blue book and receipts in oilcloth. "I know a safe place," he said. "Where?" "My camp. If the papers leave with you, Bram will say you created them. Then choose another place." Sabine considered everyone she knew. Trust had become a dangerous thing. At last, she thought of Agnes Bell, the retired schoolteacher who lived near the chapel. Agnes had taught half the settlement to read, including Elias. She disliked Bram, and had once served as assistant to the county clerk. They carried the records to Agnes after dark. The old woman opened her door wearing a nightcap and holding a fireplace poker. When Sabine explained, Agnes read every page twice. "This signature is certainly false," she said. "How can you be sure?" Ivo asked. "Elias formed his capital O with 2 strokes. I taught him to write." "This was made in 1. That will not prove forgery before a council," Sabine said. "No, but the missing seal might." Agnes examined the copied deed described in the blue book. County deeds use a raised mark pressed into the lower corner. If Bram showed the council a plain paper copy, someone ignored the law. "Can we obtain the original?" "Not until the pass opens." Sabine felt hope slipping away. Agnes tapped the date written beside the forged transfer. "Perhaps we do not need it. This document claims Elias signed before 2 witnesses on March 17th. "Yes. Where was Elias that day?" Sabine tried to remember. "He was home." "Are you certain?" "He was sick with mountain fever for most of March." Agnes stood and searched a cabinet. She returned with an old attendance ledger from the settlement school. "I kept weather notes," she said. "Teachers do that when children travel from distant farms." On March 17th, a severe storm had closed every road in Frost Hollow. Elias had been unable to leave his bed, and Sabine had sent a message to Agnes asking for medicine. Agnes had written the request in the margin. One witness named on the deed was Bram Vale. The other was a surveyor named Enoch Price. Ivo studied the page. Price was not in Frost Hollow that winter. "How do you know?" Sabine asked. "He worked at the Silver Camp with me. He lost 3 fingers in January and left for Missouri before the roads closed." Agnes sat back. "Then we have a dead deed, witnessed by an absent man." A sound came from outside. All 3 turned toward the window. A shadow crossed the curtain. Ivo reached the door first, but Sabine placed a hand on his arm. "No. He may escape. Let him. The papers are here, and Agnes has seen them. We need witnesses, not a fight." Ivo looked down at her hand. Then he stepped away from the door. A moment later, they heard boots running through the snow. The next morning, the words "thief" and "liar" were painted across Sabine's workshop door in black tar. She stood in the yard, looking at them, while people passed on the road. Some slowed. No one offered to help. Sabine fetched a scraper and began removing the tar. Ivo arrived carrying lumber. He said nothing. He set down the boards, took another scraper, and worked beside her. "You do not have to do this," she said. "I know. People will see you. I know that too." They scraped until their hands ached. Beneath the tar, the wood remained stained. "I could replace the door," Ivo said. "No. It will always show. I want it to show." He looked at her. "Someday," Sabine said, "I want people to remember what they allowed." Ivo nodded. "Then we leave the stain." Bram called a council meeting for the following Tuesday. The notice said the town would review the oral debt and consider purchasing Sabine's property for public use. Sabine understood what he intended. He wanted to take the land before the county office could be reached. For 2 days, she barely slept. She copied every record in Elias's blue book. Agnes prepared a written statement about his signature and the weather ledger. Ivo sent a rider to the Silver Camp, hoping to find someone who remembered when Enoch Price had left for Missouri. Meanwhile, Orrin Creel visited Sabine's customers. He warned them that clothing purchased from her could be seized as part of the bank's claim. Orders disappeared again. Even men from Ivo's crew were questioned. Sabine's fear deepened, but so did her anger. It was no longer only about the house. Orrin and Bram had used debt to frighten Marta. They had used gossip to turn neighbors against one another. They had taken honest payments and changed numbers because they believed a grieving widow would never challenge them. On the night before the meeting, Sabine sat at her work table with the blue coat she had once made for Laurel Pritch spread before her. She had transformed it into a fitted winter coat for herself. The silver leaves still decorated the collar. "I do not know if I can stand in front of them," she said. Ivo sat across from her. You stand in front of them every time you enter town. That is different. Why? Because tomorrow, they will all be looking at me. They already look at you. The answer hurt because it was true. They will laugh, she said. Some may. They will call me bitter. They will say I misunderstood the records. Bram speaks well, and Oren has the ledgers. You have the truth. Truth does not always speak loudly. No, Ivo said. Sometimes it needs a strong voice. Sabine looked toward Elias's sketch above the mantel. He would have known what to say. Perhaps. I wish he were here. I know. Ivo's voice carried no jealousy and no demand that she stop grieving. He did not reach across the table. He allowed her love for Elias to remain in the room without trying to make it smaller. Sabine traced one silver leaf with her finger. I used to believe strength meant not crying. What do you believe now? I do not know. I think you can cry and still walk into that hall. She raised her eyes to his. I will stand near the back, he continued. If you want me to speak, I will. If you want me silent, I will remain silent. You are not going to save me. No. The smallest smile touched her lips. Good, she said. I am tired of people deciding what I need without asking. The meeting hall was full before noon. Farmers stood along the walls. Women crowded the benches. Miners in dusty coats filled the doorway. Word of forged deeds and stolen water had spread, despite Bram's effort to control it. Sabine entered wearing the blue coat. The silver leaves around the collar caught the light. Conversation faded as she walked down the center aisle. She could feel people measuring her body, her clothes, and the space she occupied. For once, she did not make herself smaller. She moved slowly, because the floor was slick, not because she was ashamed. Ivo followed several steps behind and stopped near the back, as promised. Bram Vale sat at a long table with Oren Creel and 2 other council members. The stained workshop door had been described in town as proof that Sabine had angry enemies. Bram claimed she had painted it herself to gain sympathy. He opened the meeting with a speech about responsibility, public safety, and the unfortunate confusion of a widow who had never learned business. Sabine waited until he finished. May I speak? She asked. Bram gave a patient smile. You will have your opportunity. I am asking now. A few people shifted in their seats. Bram nodded. Briefly. Sabine placed the bank receipts on the table. Oren Creel says I paid $18 after my husband's death. These 6 receipts carry his signature and show payments totaling $76. Oren did not touch them. Receipts can be altered. Agnes Bell rose from the front bench. I examined those papers. The ink, dates, and signatures are consistent with records from the bank. Bram frowned. You are not a financial expert. No, Agnes said. I am merely the woman who taught both of you to write. A ripple of laughter passed through the room. Bram's face reddened. Sabine opened Elias's blue book. My husband copied the original loan terms. At the time of his death, he owed $62, not $412. Oren stood. A private notebook proves nothing. It proves he was watching you. Or it proves he was confused. He was not confused when he discovered the forged deed. The room went silent. Bram leaned forward. Be very careful. Sabine's hands trembled, but her voice did not. A document in the council records, claims Elias transferred our spring and 7 acres to the Frost Hollow Development Company. That company belongs to Bram Vale. It is a legal transfer. It claims Elias signed on March 17th before you and Enoch Price. He did. Agnes placed the school weather ledger beside the receipts. On March 17th, every road in Frost Hollow was closed by a storm. Elias was sick in bed. I recorded a request from Sabine for medicine. Bram shrugged. He may have signed at home. Then explain Enoch Price. Every head turned toward Ivo as he walked down the aisle. A thin young man followed him. His left hand was missing 3 fingers. Ivo stopped beside Sabine, but did not step in front of her. The young man removed his hat. My name is Enoch Price. Bram's face lost its color. Enoch continued. I left Frost Hollow in January of that year. Mr. Venn's rider found me in a camp south of the county line. I never witnessed a deed for Elias Orrell. I never gave Bram Vale permission to use my name. Bram rose so quickly that his chair struck the wall. This man was paid. By whom? Sabine asked. Bram pointed at Ivo. By him. This is his scheme. He wants the land. Sabine stepped between Bram and Ivo. No, she said. You will look at me. Bram blinked. You damaged my water channel. You hid my payments. You spread lies about my work and my character. You believed people would accept those lies because they already enjoyed laughing at my body. You believed no one would listen to a poor, heavy widow if a respectable man called her confused. Murmurs moved through the hall. Bram tried to interrupt, but Sabine raised her voice. You were almost right. They stopped bringing me work. They watched while I struggled. Some of them called me names. Some taught their children to do the same. You used every cruel thought in this settlement as a tool, and many people placed that tool directly into your hand. No one laughed now. Orrin Creel began gathering the papers in front of him. One of the other council members, Samuel Dorr, caught his wrist. You will leave those where they are, Samuel said. Orrin pulled away. This meeting has become unlawful. The bank's own receipts are lawful, Sabine replied. So is the statement of Marta Pell. Marta stood near the rear bench. Her face was white with fear. Her husband held her hand. I heard Bram and Orrin discussing the water channel, she said. Her voice was weak at first, then grew clearer. Orrin said it had to fail before the debt deadline. Bram said the land would be worth less without water. Bram also asked me where Sabine kept Elias's records. I told him. I am ashamed that I did. Bram stared at her. Your husband owes this town money. He owes the bank, Marta said. That does not mean you own my voice. A deputy named Cullen Shaw stepped away from the wall. He had served Frost Hollow for 9 years and rarely challenged the council. Now he approached the table. Bram, give me the council keys. You have no authority. Until the county judge arrives, I have the authority to preserve records connected to a suspected crime. This is foolishness. Then the records will clear you. Bram looked toward the door. The miners standing there did not move aside. Orrin Creel sank slowly into his chair. Laurel Pritch rose from the second bench. She looked at Sabine's blue coat and recognized the silver leaves. I ordered that coat, she said quietly. Sabine said nothing. I refused to pay for it. I let people insult you because I did not want them to turn on me. Nella Crow stared at the floor. Laurel continued. Bram told my husband that anyone who supported Sabine would lose access to bank credit. We believed him. A farmer near the wall spoke next. He told me the same. So did Orrin, another man said. Voices spread across the hall. People described altered payments, unexplained fees, missing records, and threats tied to the bank. What began as Sabine's defense became a public accounting of years of quiet control. Through it all, Ivo remained beside the aisle. He did not speak for her. Whenever Sabine looked toward him, he met her eyes and gave the smallest nod. It reminded her to breathe. Deputy Shaw locked the council office and the bank records before sunset. Bram Vale and Orrin Creel were not dragged through the street or harmed. They were held in separate rooms at the inn until the county judge could cross the pass. Enoch Price gave a written statement. Agnes copied the evidence, and 3 witnesses signed each page. The investigation lasted through the rest of winter. County officials discovered that Bram and Orrin had created false debts against 7 properties. They had planned to obtain the land cheaply and sell water access to a private timber company. The damage to Sabine's channel had been arranged by a hired laborer who confessed after learning that Bram intended to blame him for everything. Bram lost his council seat and was sentenced to prison for fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to damage property. Orrin lost the bank and received a prison sentence as well. The stolen payments were returned from the bank's remaining assets. The false deed was destroyed under the county judge's supervision. Sabine's true debt was $62, just as Elias had written. She paid it with money earned from Ivo's clothing orders. When the judge handed her a clear deed bearing the raised county seal, she pressed her thumb against the mark and thought of Elias. "You protected it," she whispered that night beside his sketch. "Just like you said you would." Then she corrected herself. "We protected it." Spring came slowly to Frost Hollow. Snow withdrew from the lower fields, and water returned to the channels with a bright, steady sound. Sabine repaired her workshop door, but left a dark patch where the tar had stained it. Above the stain, she placed a new wooden sign: Orrell Winter Clothing and Trail Goods. Orders returned. At first, Sabine distrusted them. She wondered whether people came from guilt instead of respect. Some probably did. She accepted their money anyway, but she required written agreements and deposits before cutting cloth. Laurel Pritch came to the shop with $12 folded inside an envelope. "This is for the coat," she said. "The coat belongs to me now." "I know. The money belongs to you." Sabine considered refusing it. Then she took the envelope. "Yes, it does." Laurel looked at the stained door. "I am sorry." "You should be." The words were not cruel. They were simply true. Laurel's eyes filled, but Sabine did not comfort her. "An apology is a beginning," Sabine said. "It is not the same as repairing harm." "What can I do?" "Speak when the room is laughing at someone who cannot safely speak for herself." Laurel nodded. "I will. Then perhaps one day I will believe you." Marta Pell came to work in Sabine's shop 3 mornings each week. She was quick with a needle and careful with numbers. Sabine did not restore their old friendship at once. Trust returned in small pieces. Marta earned each one through steady honesty. Ivo's mountain crew became Sabine's largest customer. Word of her durable coats spread to shepherds and freight drivers beyond the settlement. By the following autumn, she employed 6 women and 2 apprentices. Every worker received fair pay, including those whose families had once mocked her. Some people called this forgiveness. Sabine did not. Forgiveness was private, and she had not given all of it. Fair wages were a business decision and a promise to herself that power would not make her resemble the people who had harmed her. Ivo continued visiting. When work was slow, he sat near the stove and repaired harnesses while Sabine sewed. Their silence became easy. He never asked her to stop speaking about Elias. He listened when she remembered him, and sometimes he shared memories of his own brother. One evening, Ivo noticed Sabine standing beside the steep path above the water channel. "You should put a railing here," he said. "I have walked it for years without one." "So have I. It still needs a railing." "Are you worried I will fall?" "I am worried anyone will fall." Sabine glanced at him. "You did not say it because of my size." "No, most people would. Most people say many things I do not understand." Together, they built the railing. Sabine measured and marked the posts while Ivo cut them. She carried tools, held boards steady, and chose where each support should stand. When the last post was set, the railing followed the curve of the path, like it had always belonged there. At sunset, they rested near the spring. The mountains reflected pale gold light, and the air smelled of wet stone and pine. "I saw you that day beside the road," Ivo said. Sabine turned toward him. "What day?" "When Laurel refused the coat." Her face warmed with old shame. "You saw me crying, yes. Why did you never say anything? It belonged to you. I did not think I had a right to enter that moment. Was that why you hired me?" "No." She searched his face. "The coat from the card game was real," he said. "So was the order. Seeing you cry only made me angry enough to stop waiting until spring." "Angry with me? With them? A little with you?" Sabine frowned. "Why with me?" "Because you believed them for a moment." She looked away. "I believed them for longer than a moment. I know. They said the same things for years. Too big, too slow, too needy, too poor. After Elias died, I began to think perhaps he had been the only person who saw me differently. He was not." Sabine's breath caught. Ivo did not reach for her. "I see you, Sabine. I see a woman who can cut a winter coat from one glance at a man's shoulders. I see someone who walked into a room full of people who had hurt her and made them face the truth. I see someone who still wakes before sunrise to pay workers fairly, even when she could earn more by paying less. You also see a woman who becomes winded climbing this hill. Yes, I become winded too. I simply hide it better. She laughed softly. Ivo's eyes remained serious. I do not want you because I feel sorry for you. I do not admire you because you survived something. I want to know you, because when I am beside you, the world feels more honest. Tears gathered in Sabine's eyes. For once, she did not turn away to hide them. I am still married to a memory in some ways, she said. I know. I may always love Elias. I would think less of you if you stopped because someone new appeared. You say that now. I will say it tomorrow. Sabine looked at his hand resting on the stone between them. She placed her fingers over it. Ivo closed his hand gently around hers. Their love did not arrive as a rescue. It grew through ordinary days. It lived in shared coffee, repaired channels, and quiet rides into town. Ivo asked before moving things in her workshop. Sabine learned that his silence did not mean anger. He learned that she needed direct words when fear began filling unanswered spaces. There were difficult days. A cruel remark could still follow Sabine home. Sometimes she looked into a mirror and heard Nella's voice instead of her own. On those days, Ivo did not tell her she was beautiful, as though beauty were a cure for every wound. He would ask, "Whose voice is that?" She would answer, "Not mine." Then she would begin again. By the next winter, the Orrell shop supplied clothing to 3 mountain settlements. Sabine added a long cutting table and widened the front doorway so bundles could be carried inside easily. She bought a stronger chair for herself, not because she was ashamed of breaking a smaller one, but because a working woman deserved tools made for her body. The people of Frost Hollow changed, though not all at once. Children who had repeated insults heard their parents speak of Sabine with respect. Women began questioning contracts before signing them. Farmers asked to see original loan papers. The council opened its meetings to the public, and Agnes Bell was elected as its first female member. On the anniversary of Elias's death, Sabine walked alone to the northern ridge. She carried a strip of blue wool and tied it to a pine near the place where he had been injured. The wind moved the cloth against the snow. "I thought saving the house would keep you here," she said. "But you were never inside the walls. You were in what you taught me to notice. You were in the records you saved and the questions you asked. You were in the part of me that refused to leave." She stood there until the cold reached through her coat. When she returned to the lower path, Ivo was waiting beside his horse. He had not followed her to the ridge. He had only come far enough to make sure she did not travel home alone after dark. Sabine stopped in front of him. "You always seem to know where to stand." "Not always. Most of the time." He looked toward the mountain. "Are you ready to go home?" Sabine considered the word. Home was the house she had built with Elias. It was the workshop bearing her name. It was also the quiet man waiting without demanding that she hurry. "Yes," she said, "I am." The following spring, Ivo asked her to marry him beside the repaired water channel. He had no ring and no prepared speech. He held a small iron key he had made himself. "What does it open?" Sabine asked. "Nothing yet. That is not very useful. I hoped it might open a chest we choose together, or a new door, if we ever build one. If you do not want to marry me, it can open a strong lock for your account books." Sabine laughed until tears filled her eyes. Ivo waited. "You understand that I will not give up this house," she said. "I would not ask. The business remains mine." "Of course. And I make the final decisions about the water. You know more about it. I will not become a quiet wife." "I have never known you to be quiet when something matters." Sabine held out her hand. "Then give me the key." He placed it on her palm. "Yes," she said. "I will marry you." Their wedding was small. Agnes performed the ceremony beneath the pines behind Sabine's house. Marta brought bread, Laurel brought flowers, and workers from Ivo's camp built long tables beside the channel. No one made a joke about the bride's size. No one asked why she wore blue instead of white. When Sabine walked toward Ivo, she did not try to move lightly or hide the breadth of her body. She walked as herself, broad and steady, carrying grief, love, memory, and hope together. Ivo watched her with the same calm respect he had shown the morning he first stood on her porch. He did not look like a man receiving something fragile. He looked like a man greeting an equal. Years later, travelers passing through Frost Hollow still heard the story of Sabine Orrell. Some versions claimed she defeated a banker with a single book. Others said she built a clothing company from one rejected coat. A few insisted that Ivo Venn had rescued her from losing everything. Sabine corrected that version whenever she heard it. Ivo did not rescue me, she would say. He brought honest work when I needed it. He stood beside me when the truth became frightening. Those things mattered. But I opened the book. I faced the council. I kept my land. Then she would smile toward Ivo, who never argued. The stained workshop door remained in place long after the business outgrew the original room. Sabine could have replaced it 100 times. Instead, she kept it beneath a covered porch, where rain and snow could not erase the mark. New apprentices sometimes asked why. Sabine would rest her hand against the dark stain and remember the cold morning when she had believed the words painted there might destroy her. "This is what a lie looks like after it loses its power," she would tell them. Beyond the workshop, the spring continued flowing through the channel Elias had built. It supplied Sabine's home, Ivo's expanded camp, and several families who settled along the eastern ridge. Everyone who used the water paid a fair share for its care, and every agreement was written clearly in the town records. In summer, silver light moved across the stream. In winter, mist rose where the deep water refused to freeze. Sabine often stood beside it at dusk, listening to its steady passage through the mountain. The water did not ask whether the stone approved of its shape. It did not apologize for the space it required. It simply followed its course, patient and strong, wearing down every barrier placed before it. Sabine understood that strength now. It was not a hard heart or a raised fist. It was the courage to remain gentle without surrendering. It was the choice to demand justice without becoming cruel. It was the willingness to love again without pretending the first love had never existed. It was standing fully inside her own life after years of being told she should take up less room. The settlement had once seen Sabine Orrell as a grieving, obese widow who could be ignored until poverty pushed her away. They had mistaken sorrow for helplessness, quiet for surrender, and kindness for fear. In the end, the woman they mocked became the person who forced Frost Hollow to face what it had allowed. Sabine saved her home, but the greater victory was something no deed could record. She reclaimed the worth that other people had tried to measure with cruel words. She learned that Elias's love had not created her value, Ivo's respect had not granted it, and the town's final approval could not increase it. It had always belonged to her. Like the spring beneath the mountain, it had remained alive even through the coldest season, waiting beneath stone and snow for the day it could rise again.